With the recent trend of everyone not liking Seth Rollins, I figured what better time than now to take a look at this top 10 and see where Seth ranks all time. There are times when WWE tries to force a square peg into a round hole and try to force us as the fans to like someone that we either have no interest in or just don't like. And thus, this list comes to life. Here are your top 10 most hated babyfaces in WWE history. Number 10, Doink the Clown. In the early 90s, Doink's evil clown heel character, in my opinion, was one of the most underrated gimmicks of all time. The potential that character had being played by Matt Osborne was unlimited. According to Matt Osborne in interviews later on, Doink was originally supposed to face Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 9, but Hogan pulled the old, "that doesn't work for me, brother." Possibly something about working with an evil clown. Who knows? Whether or not that is true or not, a feud with Hulk and Doink would have been very fun and could have helped Doink get the evil clown character even more over than it was. But what WWF did instead was turn Doink face later in the year and have him be a child-friendly clown instead. How lame. It is no wonder why nobody likes babyface Doink. Number 9, Rocky Maivia. The Rock is one of the most beloved babyfaces in the history of WWE, so naturally, at the beginning, everyone hated him. When The Rock was in the Nation of Domination as Rocky Maivia, the crowd hated him, chanted "Die Rocky Die" among other things, and signs like you see in this picture, and wanted nothing to do with him. So what WWE did, and what they always should do in this situation, Seth Rollins, is turn the guy heel and hope that down the line afterwards they could turn him back babyface and the crowd would love it. Number 8, The New Day. When New Day initially formed, it was very different to the way things are now. They were shown to us as three men all embracing the power of positivity, which may work now that they've had 5 years to install it. But when initially introducing it, you can see why the crowd didn't care for it. At the time, most people thought the gimmick was stupid, but the hard work from Kofi, Xavier, and Big E would eventually turn that all around. New Day would turn heel, but then eventually as heels, the crowd finally warmed up to them and started embracing them, turning them babyface to go on an incredible run of being the longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions in history, winning multiple titles through both brands, and even Kofi Kingston capturing the WWE Championship from Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 35. Number 7, Alberto Del Rio. Del Rio was and always should have been a heel character, coming out in the fancy cars, the personal ring announcer, all of the pageantry around the character. So, when WWE tried to turn Del Rio into a babyface, and the feud with the all-American racist Jack Swagger with Zeb Coulter, Del Rio struggled to get over as a babyface, and this culminated it with one of the greatest Money in the Bank cash-ins of all time, with Dolph Ziggler, who was the heel, cashing in on Alberto, who was the face at the time, to win the World Championship from Del Rio. This was one of the loudest crowd reactions and the loudest crowd pops in recent memory from that night after Mania crowd for Dolph Ziggler, who I will repeat again was the heel at the time. And WWE realized later on that they would have to do a double turn and turn Ziggler face and turn Del Rio back heel. Number 6, Sheamus. Sheamus is another guy who was the perfect heel character. When he first came into WWE, his look, his attitude, it all fed into a great heel character. So when WWE tried to turn Sheamus into a babyface with much of the corny dialogue that he had, and promos and goofy storylines like the one with the Big Show measuring the power of a brogue kick versus a knockout punch, naturally the fans did not care for it. Number 5, Batista. In 2014, Batista returned to win the Royal Rumble. after a few years hiatus from the company. Only problem with that was, the only person the crowd wanted to see win that match was Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan ended up not even being in the match, and when Rey Mysterio came out at the last number 30 entrant, the crowd even booed him. This left a never-ending stain on Batista, though, who WWE still tried to push as a babyface afterward, but ended up in the fans rejecting him and chanting Bootista or Bluetista. Thankfully, though, the overwhelming crowd support for Daniel Bryan ultimately gave WWE no choice but to slot Daniel Bryan into the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania that year of Randy Orton and Batista, where that pay-per-view would end with one of the all-time great feel-good moments of Daniel Bryan capturing the WWE World Heavyweight Championship to close the show. Number 4, Vince McMahon. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Vince was never a heel, bro. Calm down. Let me finish. Let me get through this. After the Montreal Screwjob, Vince felt the need to give an explanation to his audience of what happened that night and why things went down the way they were. So Vince had a promo that he thought would be a babyface promo explaining those actions. And that promo is now known as the famous Bret Screwed Bret promo. This failed attempt of Vince being a babyface and giving the audience an explanation, however, launched into the heel Vince McMahon persona, creating the best heel character in pro wrestling history and turning the Monday Night Wars around with his eventual feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Number 3, Seth Rollins. After beating Brock Lesnar for the Universal title at WrestleMania in 2019, you'd think it would be all smooth sailing for Seth Rollins from there. Unfortunately, afterwards, WWE decided to pair him with his real-life girlfriend Becky Lynch and slowly started to make Seth seem less and less cool. Combine this with comments from Seth would make about Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose, after leaving WWE for competing company AEW, acting like a douche on Twitter, and culminating with the Hell in a Cell 2019 finish, which saw him versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt, who was one of the most beloved acts in wrestling. Seth incapacitated The Fiend to the point where the referee had to stop the match. It was one of the most hated finishes of all time, and cemented Seth Rollins among this list of the most hated babyfaces of all time. Number 2, Roman Reigns. After splitting up the Shield, it became clear who Vince McMahon thought would be the breakout star in the group. Reigns was pushed to the moon and back 3 times over, all as a babyface. The problem was that WWE tried to make Roman something that he wasn't. They wanted Roman to be The Rock, it seems like. But the problem is, no one can be The Rock except The Rock. Reports surfaced online that Vince McMahon was personally writing all of Roman Reigns' promos, which led us to classics like Roman and the Beanstalk, or You Are a Sniveling Little Suck-Up Sellout Full of Suffer and Succotash, Son. It's no wonder for 3 years everyone was begging for Roman to turn heel. At least now, in 2019, Roman is finally, seemingly, earned the respect of the WWE fans. And number 1, John Cena. Who else would it be? From around 2007 up until 2016, John Cena was the top of top guys in the company. His run as a top guy lasted possibly longer than anyone in the company's history outside of Bruno Sammartino. After so long of John Cena being portrayed as the top guy, it caused a divide between the hardcore male fans who hated Cena and the women and children who all loved Cena. This would go on from probably 2007 until around 2016. The Let's Go Cena, Cena Sucks, and the 16 times that he has won world titles in the WWE. His run on top is unparalleled, and his polarizing reaction is what ultimately earns him the spot as the number 1 most hated babyface of all time. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.